Margaret's aching back was almost beyond repair, and her legs were tired from years of struggling. But thinking of granddaughter Lily's future, she continued to carry her baskets of vegetables to the market to sell. Margaret lived in a worn-out corner of Dallas, scraping together a life as a vegetable seller. Her hands, roughened by years of labor, sifted through produce every day, from dawn until the light faded. Her stand wasn't much: a few wooden crates filled with vegetables, a canvas tarp for shade, and a metal cash box. Yet, it was her world, her means of survival, and the only way she could make sure her granddaughter Lily had a future better than her own. Margaret's only dream was that Lily would escape this cycle of poverty. She wanted her granddaughter to see beyond the stalls of the Dallas market, beyond the endless streets lined with struggling shops and peeling paint. Lily had her whole life ahead of her, and Margaret intended to see that life headed somewhere bright. One late afternoon, as the market slowed, Lily approached her grandmother's stand. Her face held a glow that Margaret knew all too well, hope mixed with excitement. Lily had always been bright, always pushing for something better. Today, she finally voiced her plan. "Grandma, I've been thinking, I want to apply to med school," Lily said, her eyes shining. "I know it's a big step, but I've done the research. There's a scholarship program that could cover everything if I'm accepted. Imagine me, a doctor. We wouldn't have to live like this anymore. We could get out of Dallas, finally leave this market behind." Margaret listened, her heart swelling with pride and worry. Becoming a doctor was no easy path. It was expensive, and the commitment was enormous. But she could see Lily's passion, her belief that this was her way out. The next morning, Margaret rose earlier than usual, driven by thoughts of Lily's future. She loaded her cart with crates and tarps, hands aching but moving quickly, filled with an energy she hadn't felt in years. By dawn, she was already at her stand, arranging her vegetables to look their freshest and fullest. Her neighbors at the market soon noticed her unusual liveliness. Bill, who sold newspapers nearby, raised an eyebrow at her brisk pace. She was moving faster than she had in years, her usual weariness replaced by a new determination. As the morning went on, word spread among the other vendors about Lily's ambition. They nodded with admiration, offering quiet words of encouragement as they passed by. Margaret shared Lily's dream with pride, her eyes bright with hope. Her granddaughter, aiming to be a doctor, something she could hardly believe but desperately wanted for Lily's future. Though some urged her to rest, Margaret only shook her head, brushing off their concern. Every bit of extra work was worth it if it meant supporting Lily. The market, once a place of mere survival, now felt like a bridge to a brighter future. Today, the vegetables weren't just for selling, they were for Lily's chance at something better. As the sun climbed higher, Margaret worked steadily, her heart filled with purpose. Margaret go to the church today, leaving her vegetable stand in Lily's care. It was a routine they'd followed for years, a system built on trust and love. The stand was small, but it was everything to them, their income, their bond, and Margaret's legacy. She trusted her granddaughter, hoping that the steady work might root Lily in the values Margaret held close: hard work, honesty, and loyalty. Returning from church, Margaret spotted her stand from a distance and froze. Vegetables were scattered across the ground, crates toppled, and her modest cash box was cracked open, completely emptied. Heart pounding, she approached, confusion twisting into horror. Who would do this? The stand had always been safe, even in a part of town where every dollar counted. She picked up a few bruised tomatoes and cucumbers from the dusty ground, fingers trembling. It was a small fortune to lose. Immediately, Margaret reached for her phone, her hands shaking. She dialed Lily's number, a feeling of dread settling in her stomach. Lily picked up, her tone strangely calm, almost detached. Margaret barely recognized the voice on the other end. Lily, Margaret's voice shook. What happened here? Where were you? There was a pause. Then Lily's voice came back, casual, almost flippant. Oh, I went out with Brandon. He wanted to show me around town, so I just closed up for a while. Margaret's hand clenched around the phone. Closed up? Lily, the stand's been wrecked. We've lost everything in the cash box. Why didn't you stay? You know how important this is to us. Her heart thudded, each beat sharp and painful. She didn't understand this side of Lily. Lily sighed, sounding bored. Grandma, it's just a vegetable stand. I want more than that. Brandon says I shouldn't be tied down here. There's a whole world out there, you know? Margaret's heart twisted. She searched for words, something to bridge this sudden chasm between them. A vegetable stand that put food on our table, Lily. A stand that kept you in school, paid for everything you needed. Lily's silence held, then she spoke, cold and firm. I want a different life, Grandma. It's not what I want anymore. The words hit Margaret like a blow. She had raised Lily alone, pouring every ounce of her strength into giving her a chance, a future. And now Lily spoke with disdain about the very life that had kept her safe and provided for her. Margaret's vision blurred, her breath quickened. She clutched her chest, feeling a sharp, stabbing pain spread across her ribs. Lily's voice came back, indifferent. Look, I don't want to argue. I'm with Brandon now and I have to go. Take care, Grandma. The line clicked and the call ended. Margaret stood there, phone pressed to her ear long after Lily had hung up, the silence wrapping around her like a dark, cold shroud. Margaret's knees buckled and she dropped onto the dirt next to the broken crates. Her chest heaved, each breath a struggle. She was overwhelmed by a deep, aching grief she hadn't felt in years. How had things changed so quickly? Lily, her only family, her only hope, had turned away from her and everything they had built together. A sharp pain shot through her chest, stealing her breath. She felt dizzy, weak. Reaching for support, she held onto the stand, the only stable thing in her spinning world. A passerby noticed Margaret slumped by her stand and rushed over, concern etched across his face. "Mum, are you all right?" he asked, his voice urgent. Margaret tried to answer, but her voice failed her. Darkness edged her vision as she clutched her chest tighter, gasping for air. She managed to whisper, "Please, call an ambulance." Everything blurred as the weight of exhaustion and betrayal pulled her down. Lily's transformation began when she was accepted into medical school on a scholarship. The future she dreamed of was finally within reach, a way out of the humble life she shared with her grandmother. School began soon after, and Lily quickly found herself in a whole new world. It was here that she met Brandon. Brandon was a top student, always well-dressed, and he exuded a natural confidence that drew people in. Coming from a wealthy family, he seemed to have it all: charm, money, and a way with people that made him practically magnetic. Soon enough, Brandon noticed Lily, impressed by her drive and fresh ambition. One day after class, he casually invited her to lunch with his friends at a high-end restaurant downtown. Lily, a little nervous but excited, agreed, feeling that maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to fit in. That lunch opened the doors to a new lifestyle for Lily. Brandon introduced her to his circle of friends, a group who lived lavishly, attending exclusive events, dining at restaurants where prices weren't even listed on the menu, and exchanging luxurious gifts like it was nothing. With each gathering, she felt herself becoming a part of this world, even as a quiet part of her felt uneasy. But Brandon's encouragement helped drown out that voice as he reassured her that she was meant for bigger things, for this very life. He told her she deserved better than the small, predictable life she had known. Meanwhile, Margaret was beginning to sense the changes in her granddaughter. Every evening when Lily returned home, there was something different about her. A new dress, an expensive-looking necklace, a certain way she carried herself. It wasn't the Lily Margaret had known, the earnest, hard-working girl who valued every small success. Margaret tried to ignore her unease, hoping it was just part of Lily adjusting to her new school. But as the days went by, her concern grew. She would gently ask about Lily's day, her new friends, but the answers were always vague, guarded, and seemed to end quickly with a sigh or an eye roll. One evening Margaret decided to speak her mind, unable to shake the nagging worry that something was slipping away. "Lily, honey, I see you're meeting new people. That's fine, but I hope you're being careful, taking things slow. Not everyone who seems nice has good intentions," she said softly, trying to sound casual, though the weight of her words hung in the air. But Lily's response was immediate and sharp. "Grandma, you just don't understand. I've met people who can actually help me get somewhere in life. They don't look down on me for being poor. They want to see me succeed." Margaret's heart sank. It wasn't just the words. It was the look in Lily's eyes, a mix of frustration and something else she couldn't quite place. Perhaps a hint of shame. But she tried again, speaking gently. "I just want you to remember who you are, Lily. You don't need to change for anyone. Not even those with more money than we've ever known. Real friends care about who you are, not what you have." Lily looked away, clearly irritated. "Grandma, that's not the way the world works anymore," she muttered, gathering her things and heading to her room, leaving Margaret alone in the kitchen. As the days turned into weeks, Lily grew closer to Brandon. He became more than just a friend. He was her introduction to a life that sparkled with all the things she had never imagined. He gave her rides in his sleek car, treated her to dinners where the smallest dish cost more than a week's worth of groceries, and showered her with small but extravagant gifts, a designer scarf, a bracelet that sparkled under every light. And with every gift, every indulgence, Lily felt a step further away from the life she once had with Margaret. Margaret watched as Lily drifted farther, and her heart grew heavier. She knew she was losing her granddaughter to a world she couldn't compete with. But what hurt more was Lily's attitude, the glances, the tone in her voice, and the subtle but unmistakable disdain that had crept in, as though their simple life was suddenly beneath her. It was as if the girl she had raised, who once appreciated every small blessing, had been replaced by someone who looked at her with impatience, as though Margaret herself were a burden holding her back. Then came the night when Lily, after returning late from an outing with Brandon, brushed off Margaret's concern with a dismissive wave. Margaret tried one last time to reach her, speaking slowly, choosing each word with care. "Lily, you have a gift for healing, for caring. Don't let anyone make you feel like you need to prove your worth. You're already enough." But Lily was already turned away, the glimmer of her new necklace catching the light as she walked off. "You wouldn't get it, Grandma. This is my chance to make something of myself. You can't expect me to stay stuck here forever." Margaret sat down, feeling a sadness settle deep in her chest, a helplessness she hadn't felt in years. She had raised Lily to be strong, independent and kind, but it seemed like the bright lights of Brandon's world were slowly erasing all that. All she could do now was hope that the granddaughter she knew was still somewhere inside, not completely lost to the life she was chasing so desperately. As the door closed behind Lily that night, Margaret wondered if she would ever see the girl she had raised again. Because of her crush on Brandon, Lily caused her grandmother, Margaret's vegetable stand, to be robbed, and her grandmother was hospitalized for 3 days. When Margaret returned home after 3 days in the hospital, she looked around her modest house, noticing how empty it felt. During her stay, only Clara had come to support her, her dear friend who never left her side. Margaret had hoped, even prayed, that her granddaughter Lily might come by, but every time she looked up expectantly at the door, It was Clara's comforting smile she saw, not Lily's. Margaret's heart ached in ways she couldn't express. When she called Clara to thank her again, she found herself asking the question that had troubled her all along. If Clara had seen Lily at all. Clara hesitated, then sighed, explaining that she'd called Lily, encouraging her to visit. Lily had simply brushed it off, saying she was too busy with school and, of course, with Brandon. Clara tried her best to persuade Lily that Margaret needed family around right now, but Lily didn't seem to care. Margaret fell silent. She felt a sharp pang, not just from the physical toll of her recent hospital stay, but from something deeper. She was grateful for Clara, of course, but she had raised Lily with love, sacrifice, and every ounce of wisdom she had. It hurt to see her granddaughter, who once showed so much promise, slipping away. By the following morning, Margaret knew she had to address this. She could no longer ignore the widening gap between them, nor Lily's drift toward a lifestyle that disregarded their shared values. Margaret was not one for drawn-out conversations, but she knew she had to be clear, for both their sakes. She waited until Lily came home that evening, glancing at her watch impatiently. When Lily finally walked in, casually tossing her purse on the kitchen counter, Margaret took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Lily," she said firmly, "we need to talk." Lily looked up, raising an eyebrow, her face a mixture of surprise and indifference. "What's the matter, Grandma?" Margaret searched her granddaughter's face, noting how much she'd changed. She told Lily she'd been in the hospital for 3 days and reminded her that she'd known that. Lily shifted uncomfortably and looked away, trying to explain that Clara had told her, but that she had a lot going on. She said she didn't think it was that serious. Margaret felt the weight of each word. She asked if it really hadn't seemed serious enough to come by, just to see if she was all right. Lily shrugged, brushing it off, saying she'd been busy with Brandon and couldn't keep worrying about what she called little things. She insisted she wasn't a kid anymore. Margaret's voice remained steady, though her heart hurt. She said that it wasn't just about her health, it was about respect and about the fact that she'd raised Lily, but now hardly recognized her. Lily's face took on a hardened expression. She understood that her grandmother didn't approve of her choices or Brandon, but she insisted she wanted more than a life selling vegetables. Brandon, she said, had shown her something different, and she wanted that life, wanted to live it fully. Lily shook her head and said she'd made up her mind. She was moving in with Brandon and thought it was best for everyone. She'd visit when she could, but she didn't plan on staying tied to this life forever. Margaret's chest tightened, but she nodded slowly. "Is that really the life you want, Lily?" she asked softly. "Turning your back on everything we've built together?" Lily's face hardened as she replied, "Yes, Grandma, I'm not like you. I want more." She gave a quick, annoyed response and turned to leave, saying she'd call sometime. Without waiting for a reply, she grabbed her purse and walked out, her footsteps fading down the hall. The door clicked shut, leaving Margaret alone in the quiet house. Margaret felt the emptiness settle around her, each room echoing with memories of a young girl she'd cared for, a girl who seemed to have vanished into the shadows of something she could no longer reach. In the following days, Margaret filled her time with the company of friends and neighbors, leaning on Clara's steady presence. She knew that the life Lily had chosen was bound to test her, and while Margaret would always be there if she was needed, there was nothing more she could say. Living with Brandon was nothing like the dream Lily had once believed in. At first, his lavish lifestyle, the expensive restaurants, and the high-end events dazzled her, but it didn't take long before the excitement faded, and she saw a side of him that made her question everything. Brandon would throw comments her way, casual, cutting remarks that seemed so subtle at first she almost didn't notice. "Your small-town manners are charming," he'd say, his smile edged with something cold. Or, "I'm sure your grandma did her best with what she had." Little by little, his words chipped away at her self-worth. She found herself feeling smaller, more out of place. The independence that had once been her pride became a distant memory. Brandon grew more controlling. He didn't like her going out alone, even for errands. When she suggested meeting up with friends from school, he brushed it off, saying she didn't need those old connections now that she had him. At first, she pushed back, but each time she mentioned her friends, he'd sulk, make her feel guilty, as though her loyalty to him was in question. Slowly, she stopped asking, stopped reaching out to anyone. She didn't even realize when the isolation crept in, but it did. She barely left the apartment. Brandon had crafted a world where he was the center, and she was just an accessory kept at arm's length from her own life. As weeks turned into months, Lily found herself slipping into a routine that revolved entirely around Brandon's schedule and whims. She couldn't pinpoint when exactly she'd begun to lose her confidence. But it was gone. The lively girl who once dreamed of becoming a doctor, who'd spoken passionately about making a difference, had faded. She was nervous, second-guessing herself, wondering if she really belonged in this world. Brandon's words echoed in her mind whenever she thought of going back to her studies or reconnecting with her old life. "You're here now, Lil. No need for that small-town nonsense." He made her feel like her roots, her family, were burdens she had to shake off, and she started believing him. One day, a call came from her grandmother's friend, Clara, delivering the news that Margaret's health had taken a turn. Lily listened, numb, her throat tightening. Clara's voice was filled with concern, asking if Lily planned to visit, to help. The truth was, she hadn't been thinking about her grandmother much. Brandon had filled every corner of her world, and she hadn't noticed how far she'd drifted. But instead of answering Clara's questions, she said, "Tell Grandma I'm busy." She hated herself as the words left her mouth, but she couldn't admit that to anyone, not even herself. Brandon's influence had crept into her heart, wrapping around her pride and pulling her deeper into his control. When Clara mentioned Margaret's condition, a flicker of guilt crossed her mind, yet Brandon's voice always echoed louder. "Why go back? That life isn't you anymore. We've moved beyond that, Lil." It stung, but she nodded, letting his perspective cloud her judgment. She let go of the guilt, buried it under layers of denial, and forced herself to believe that her world now was with Brandon, away from those ties she once cherished. But Brandon was no savior. His words turned sharper, his expectations more demanding. And one evening, after she returned from a short walk she'd taken without telling him, she found him in the apartment, with someone new. Her heart dropped. The woman beside him was draped in luxury, her posture relaxed, her laughter easy. Brandon didn't even flinch as he introduced her, like he owed Lily no explanation. "This is Vanessa," he said, his arm casually around the woman's shoulders. He didn't even look at Lily, didn't notice the shock draining the color from her face. That was the moment it all unraveled. Lily felt the reality hit her like a punch in the chest. The world she'd given up everything for, the man she'd thought would make her life brighter, was nothing more than a mirage. As Brandon walked past her, laughing with Vanessa, a chilling emptiness swept over her. The realization sank in, bitter and final. She was just another name, another story in his life, a temporary amusement. All the isolation, the control, the small insults he'd thrown her way had led her here, to this moment where she realized she'd given up so much for nothing. She sat on the edge of the bed that night, staring into the dark, feeling emptier than she'd ever thought possible. Her reflection in the mirror across the room looked back at her. A stranger. The girl who'd left her grandmother's supper to chase a fantasy was nowhere to be seen. In her place was someone who'd lost everything that mattered, her dreams, her family, her own self-worth. She'd let herself be taken in, molded, stripped of everything that once gave her purpose. Lily knew then that she'd have to make a choice. She couldn't stay in this place, in this life where she was nothing but a shell. There was no going back to Brandon, no pretending that he'd been anything more than a wake-up call. She was done fooling herself. Lily sat alone in her small, quiet house, staring down at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. The reality was sinking in fast, as if a cold wave had crashed over her. She was pregnant. Her mind spun, replaying fragments of her life over the past year, each moment that had led her here. Brandon's charm, the expensive gifts, and the allure of that world he'd shown her. All of it felt like a distant, cruel joke now. Later that evening, Lily found herself sitting at her grandmother Margaret's kitchen table, trying to explain the impossible. Margaret watched her intently, concern etched into every line on her face. Lily struggled to find the words, finally blurting out the truth and confessing her deep uncertainty. Her gaze remained fixed on the worn table between them as she admitted how terrified she was, and that she didn't know if she could do this. She didn't feel ready to be a mother. She knew that keeping this baby would mean grounding herself, giving up on the dreams she'd once had for herself. But what other choice did she really have? Margaret reached across the table, her hand resting gently on Lily's. She assured her that she wasn't alone in this, not for a second, and reminded her that life didn't always unfold according to plans. As she looked at her grandmother, Lily felt a flicker of comfort, though the fear remained. Margaret's words came back steady, a reminder of strength and resilience, of how taking responsibility wasn't about feeling ready. It was about giving everything you had when it was needed most. She pointed out how love could be the foundation, a place to start building courage and strength. Lily found herself thinking about Margaret's words, which stirred something within her, a reminder of the sacrifices her grandmother had made, the years she'd spent working at that little vegetable stand to give Lily a chance. This baby was a part of her now, an unexpected twist in her story, but it was hers. And Margaret was right. There was a kind of strength in love. Maybe that would be enough. Just as Lily felt she was coming to terms with her decision, Brandon's family intervened. News had reached them, and their reaction was swift and brutal. Brandon's mother arranged a meeting, cold and efficient as ever, making it clear what they expected of Lily. She said that Brandon had his future ahead of him, and a child would only complicate that. There were ways, she continued, to take care of this quietly. The implication was unmistakable, and Lily felt a chill run down her spine. She'd once admired Brandon's family, thought they were people she could rely on, but standing here now, she saw their true colors, calculating, manipulative, and utterly self-serving. She shook her head, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice as she told them no. Brandon's mother's expression hardened, and she warned Lily that she'd be doing this on her own. Brandon wouldn't support her, and neither would they. She left Lily standing there, the faint threat lingering, the reality of their words pressing down on her. Back at Margaret's house, Lily recounted the ordeal, her hands shaking and her voice barely holding together as she described the way they'd tried to intimidate her, telling her she'd ruined Brandon's life, and her own too. Margaret listened quietly, her face unreadable, and when Lily finished, she took her hands and held them firmly. She assured her that those people only cared about appearances, about money and reputation. They didn't know what real love was, what real family meant. And she reminded Lily that she didn't need their approval or support. She had a family who truly loved her. Lily felt tears welling up in her eyes. She'd thought she'd lost everything, that she was on the brink of a life she didn't know how to handle. But here, with Margaret, she felt a kind of acceptance and strength she hadn't found anywhere else. In the days that followed, Margaret taught Lily what it meant to be strong, to hold her ground. She reminded her of the hard life she'd lived, the sacrifices she'd made, and how she'd always managed to keep going, no matter what. "I've walked through fire in my life," Margaret would say, with a small smile. "And here I am, still standing." Gradually, Lily found herself growing into the role she'd feared so deeply. She didn't have all the answers, but each day she felt a bit more prepared, a bit more capable of handling what lay ahead. As the day of her graduation arrived, Lily could hardly believe how far she'd come. Years of struggle, sleepless nights, and the unyielding task of raising her son alone had brought her to this moment. Today, more than just a personal achievement, it was an opportunity to honor the one person who'd made it possible and to reveal the truth about the man who'd almost destroyed her. The auditorium was filled with students, their families, and faculty. At the front sat Margaret, her grandmother, beaming with pride. She'd sacrificed everything for Lily, her time, her health, her entire life. Today, Lily would ensure everyone knew the strength of this remarkable woman. But another reason sharpened her resolve. Brandon, the man who'd betrayed her, was there too, seated further back, laughing with friends, smug and self-assured. He had always used others, weaving a false image to hide his lies and manipulations. For years, Lily had struggled in the shadow of his deceit. Today, she would make things right. When Lily's name was called, she stepped onto the stage to receive her diploma. Applause filled the room, but instead of the standard thank you speech, Lily had a different message in mind. "I want to take a moment to thank the most incredible person in my life," she began, her voice steady yet resolute. "Margaret, my grandmother. She's not just my family, she's my hero." A hush fell over the audience as Lily spoke. "She took me in, raised me, taught me to fight for what's right, no matter how hard it was. That's why, today, I can't let this moment pass without speaking the truth." The crowd listened, captivated, as Lily's voice grew stronger. "Brandon," she continued, her eyes scanning the room, "I know you're here. For years, you fooled everyone, but no longer." The audience murmured, heads turning to find Brandon, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Lily didn't pause. "I have proof of the lies you built your success on, of every exam you cheated on, every project you paid someone else to complete." She reached into her pocket, holding up documents for all to see. "These are records of every unethical step you took to get here. All this time, you pretended to be the model student, the dependable friend, but you were only out for yourself." There was a ripple of shock through the crowd. Faculty exchanged glances. Brandon, once smug, was now visibly nervous. As he started inching toward the exit, security noticed, and he was intercepted. Lily pressed on. "This isn't just about exposing lies," she continued, unwavering. "It's about protecting others from harm. Brandon's actions may seem harmless, but they ruin lives, steal opportunities, and mock the principles we're supposed to stand for as future professionals." As Brandon was led out, Lily raised her voice one last time. "You can walk out, but the truth follows, and I'll make sure every institution you lied to hears it." The room erupted in applause, growing louder as people rose to their feet, moved by her words. Lily looked down at Margaret, whose face shone with pride. Stepping off the stage, Lily was met with admiration and respect. Faculty and friends approached her, offering their gratitude and newfound admiration. Margaret, unable to contain her joy, pulled her into a hug, her eyes wet with tears. "You did it," she whispered. "And you did it right." Holding her grandmother, Lily felt the strength of their bond. Margaret's unwavering support, her love, her belief in Lily had brought her to this moment of victory and redemption. Lily had finally made it. She was now a doctor, a single mum, and her son brought an unending joy to her life. The journey to this point hadn't been easy, far from it, but that only made it all the more meaningful. Her work was intense and demanding, but the reward of helping others and proving herself every day kept her grounded and thankful. She often found herself thinking about the sacrifices Margaret had made, especially in those moments where she felt like she might not make it. Margaret, the constant pillar, had never given up on her, even during those turbulent years when Lily had lost her way. The two women now lived together again, with Margaret providing loving care and stability for her great-grandson, while Lily navigated her career and parenthood. Their little family had found a rhythm that felt whole and complete. There was something sacred in the daily routine, the shared meals, the quiet evenings where they could just be with each other, away from the troubles of the past. Margaret watched with pride as Lily took on every challenge and found herself as a mother and a doctor, knowing that the life they now had was built on the sacrifices and hard lessons of the past. They had even reopened the small vegetable stand that had once been Margaret's lifeline. To an outsider, it might have looked like just a humble business, but to them, it was a tribute to their strength and resilience. The stand became more than a place to sell produce. It was a place where neighbors gathered, where stories were told, and where memories of loved ones lingered. Lily saw the stand not just as a business, but as a symbol of the values her grandmother had instilled in her. Working there alongside Margaret, she could feel the history and love that had brought them to this point. The vegetable stand became a beacon in their community, a reminder of the humble roots and hard work that had sustained generations before them. The days at the stand were long, but filled with laughter, and Lily loved watching her son run around, playing among the customers. Margaret, now with a few more years under her belt, would sit on a stool and chat with neighbors who came by. It was clear to everyone who saw them that the bond between grandmother and granddaughter had only grown stronger through the years. Margaret had found in her grandson a new light, something that reminded her of when Lily was young. She felt complete, seeing him grow up in an environment of love, care and respect, traits that Lily had fully embraced and now passed on to her child. As the boy grew older, he started helping out at the stand, learning how to weigh vegetables, greet customers, and make change with the kind of enthusiasm only a child could have. Margaret would watch him, a smile on her face, as he took on these little responsibilities with pride. Just like his mother, she'd often say to Lily, who would laugh and shake her head, knowing how true those words were. It was as if the three generations were connected in those moments, through shared stories, hard work, and the love that had endured through so much. Margaret felt like she had lived a lifetime of blessings, despite the hardships. She often told her friends, "I'm the luckiest old woman there is." Watching Lily bloom into the woman she always knew she could be was all the reward she needed. Every day felt like a gift, knowing they had created a family built on trust, understanding, and compassion. She watched her grandson with a tenderness that could only come from a life of hard-earned wisdom. In her eyes, he was a beacon of hope, someone who would carry forward the legacy of kindness and integrity that had guided her and Lily. As time went on, Margaret's energy faded, but her spirit remained strong. She would sit with Lily in the evenings, reminiscing, laughing over old stories, and sometimes sharing the deeper lessons she hoped would guide Lily and her son in the years to come. Lily listened, savoring each word, knowing that these were moments she'd hold on to forever. They had both changed so much, but the core of their love remained as steady as it had been in the hardest of times. Neighbors often commented on how happy Margaret looked in her later years. There was a peacefulness about her, a sense of fulfillment that only comes from a life lived fully. You've got a beautiful family. Thanks for staying with us through this touching journey about Margaret and Lily and the powerful bond they shared. Stories like these remind us of the strength of family, the sacrifices made out of love, and the value of holding on to our roots, even when life tempts us to stray. Margaret's devotion, Lily's rediscovery of herself, and the values they rebuilt together are a testament to resilience and forgiveness. If this story resonates with you, I'd love to hear your own experiences. Have you had a loved one who stood by you through difficult times? Or maybe you found yourself coming back to the values you learned as a child? Drop a comment below. Your stories are what keep this community meaningful. And hey, if you think this story could touch someone else's heart, go ahead and share this video.